I knew something was wrong with the house before I ever stepped inside. It wasn't the peeling white paint, or the boarded up upstairs window, or the way the weeds had swallowed most of the front walk. It was the porch light. It was on. At 3 in the afternoon, on a house that had supposedly been empty for 12 years. And the strangest part was, it flickered once when I pulled into the driveway, almost like it had noticed me. My name is Daniel, and at the time this happened, I was working for a small property cleanup company in northern Michigan. Nothing fancy, mostly foreclosures, estate cleanouts, rental properties that tenants had destroyed, and the occasional abandoned house where the bank just wanted everything hauled away. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid cash sometimes, and back then, I needed every dollar I could get. My boss, Ray, called me on a Thursday morning and said he had a job for me. Easy one, he said. That was always a lie. He told me there was an old farmhouse at the end of Briar Road that had finally been sold. New owner wanted it emptied before renovation. I asked if it was a full cleanout. Ray paused before answering. Mostly just basement and attic stuff. Maybe a few rooms. Don't spend more than 1 day there. That was the first thing that bothered me. Ray never cared how long a job took as long as he could bill for it. Then he said, "And don't go there after dark." I laughed because I thought he was joking. He didn't laugh back. He just said, "I'm serious. Start early, be gone before sundown." Briar Road was one of those roads that feels like it doesn't want you there. It started normal enough, just 2 lanes cutting through farmland and woods, but the farther I drove, the worse the pavement got. Then the houses disappeared. Then the road narrowed. Then the trees leaned in close on both sides, thick and dark, even though it was a bright day. My GPS lost signal about 2 miles before the house. I almost turned around, not because I was scared, not yet, but because the road didn't look used. Branches scraped the sides of my truck. Grass grew up through the cracks. At one point, I had to stop and move a fallen limb out of the way. Then I saw the mailbox. It was rusted, almost orange, hanging open by one hinge. No name, just the number 1188 painted in black. Behind it was a long dirt driveway leading back into the trees, and at the very end of it was the house. It sat in a clearing like something had been waiting. 2 stories, white siding gone gray, a sagging porch, a stone chimney, upper windows so dark they looked painted black from the inside. The place had that abandoned house smell even from the driveway. Wet wood, mold, old leaves, something else too, something sour underneath it. I got out of the truck and immediately noticed how quiet it was. No birds, no wind, no insects, just the ticking of my engine cooling down. Then the porch light flickered, just once. I stood there staring at it. The bulb was yellow and weak, but it was definitely on. I checked the work order again. Utilities disconnected. Power off since 2011. I told myself maybe the new owner had turned it back on, but the electric meter was missing from the side of the house. Just an empty round socket where it used to be. That should have been enough for me to leave, but I didn't. Because back then I still believed most things had normal explanations, and because I needed the money. The front door wasn't locked. It opened with a long wooden groan that echoed deeper into the house than it should have. Inside the air was cold. Not cool. Cold. Like walking into a basement freezer. The living room was mostly empty. A couch with a torn sheet over it. A cracked mirror over the fireplace. Old newspapers stacked near the wall. I swept my flashlight across the room even though enough daylight came through the windows. The beam landed on the mirror. For half a second I thought someone was standing behind me. A tall shape, right over my shoulder. I spun around. Nothing. Just an open doorway and a porch beyond it. I looked back at the mirror. Only me. Pale face. Dust mass hanging around my neck. Flashlight shaking a little in my hand. I actually said out loud, "Cut it out." Like the house could hear me. And maybe it could. Because somewhere upstairs, a floorboard creaked. I stood completely still. Then another creak. Slow and heavy. Not like settling, like a footstep. I called out, "Hello?" My voice sounded small in that house. No answer. I grabbed the pry bar from my tool bag and headed towards the staircase. Every instinct I had told me not to go up there. but there was a practical part of my brain that kept saying squatter, raccoon, maybe some kid messing around. The stairs were narrow and steep. Halfway up, I smelled something different. Not mold, not damp wood. Perfume. Old-fashioned perfume. Sweet and powdery. The kind my grandmother used to wear when I was little. At the top of the stairs were 3 doors. One on the left, one on the right, one at the end of the hall. The left room was empty except for a bed frame. The right room had boxes stacked against the wall. The door at the end of the hall was closed, and beneath it I could see light. Not daylight. A warm yellow glow, like a lamp was on inside. I waited there listening. From behind the door came a sound that made the skin on my arms tighten. Humming. A woman humming softly. No tune I recognized. Just 3 or 4 notes repeated over and over. I backed away without even realizing it. My heel hit the wall behind me. The humming stopped. Then a woman's voice whispering from inside the room. "You're early." I ran. I'm not embarrassed to admit that. I ran down those stairs so fast I nearly fell. I crossed the living room, shoved the front door open, and stumbled onto the porch gasping. The sunlight outside felt fake somehow. Too bright. Too normal. I got into my truck and locked the doors. For a good minute I just sat there breathing hard. Then I looked up at the upstairs window at the end of the hall. A woman was standing there. Not clearly, just behind the dirty glass. Tall, thin, wearing something pale. Her hand was raised like she was waving. Then the porch light went out. I should have left. I know that. That is the part that everyone always asks me. Why didn't you just leave? And the honest answer is stupid. I called Ray. No service. I drove halfway back down Briar Road until my phone picked up 1 bar. Then I called him. He answered, sounding annoyed. I told him that there was someone in the house. He went quiet. Then he said, "Did you see her?" Not, "What do you mean?" Not, "Are you sure?" He said, "Did you see her?" I didn't answer right away. Ray sighed. "Listen to me. Don't mess around upstairs. Just grab what's marked in the basement and garage. The owner only cares about the trunks." I said, "What trunks?" "The black ones, 3 of them. Basement. Load them and leave." I told him there was a woman in the house. Ray said, "There isn't." The way he said it made my stomach turn. Then he added, "And Daniel, don't open them." I sat parked on the side of the road for 10 minutes. I told myself I was going to quit. Then I thought about my rent, my truck payment, the credit card that I was already behind on, and I turned around. When I got back to the house, the porch light was on again. The front door was closed. I knew I left it wide open. This time I didn't go upstairs. I went straight for the basement door off the kitchen. The kitchen was in bad shape. Ceiling sagging, cabinets open, mouse droppings everywhere. On the refrigerator door, yellowed and curled at the edges, was a child's drawing held up by a magnet. A stick figure family. A man, a woman, and a little girl. And behind them, drawn much taller than everyone else, was a dark figure with no face. Across the top, in shaky crayon letters, it said, "He lives in the walls." I stared at the drawing for longer than I should have. Then, from upstairs, faintly, the humming started again. I opened the basement door. The smell down there was awful. Wet stone, rot, something metallic. The stairs descended into the darkness and my flashlight barely cut through it. At the bottom was an old dirt-floored basement with stone walls and wooden support beams. There were jars on the shelves, a broken washing machine, rusty tools, a child's bicycle with no front wheel. And against the far wall were the 3 black trunks, exactly like Ray said. They were old, heavy-looking. Each one had brass latches and leather handles that had cracked with age. White paint had been used to mark numbers on top. 1, 2, and 3. I walked over slowly. The closer I got, the colder the room became. When I reached the trunks, I noticed something scratched into the wall behind them. Dozens of lines, like tally marks, hundreds maybe. And underneath them, carved into the stone, were the words, "She comes down when the house gets hungry." That was it for me. I grabbed the first trunk handle and dragged it towards the stairs. It was heavy, but not as heavy as I expected. Whatever was inside shifted when I moved it. A soft sliding sound, like cloth or hair. I tried not to think about it. I got the first trunk upstairs and out to the porch, then the second. By the time I came back for the third, the basement door was closed. I had left it open. I stood in the kitchen staring at it. The humming had stopped. Now the house was silent again. I reached for the knob, but before I touched it, someone knocked from the other side. 3 slow knocks. I stepped back. Then came a voice. A child's voice this time. "Don't take her things." I whispered, "Who's there?" The knob began to turn. Slowly. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, an old wooden chair, and held it like a shield. The door opened inward a few inches. Darkness on the other side. Then a small hand slid around the edge of the door. Gray skin, tiny fingers, dirty nails. I dropped the chair and ran for the back door. I didn't stop until I was in the yard. When I turned around, every upstairs window had someone standing in it. Not one person, several, still shapes, watching me. The woman at the end window, a little girl in another, a man with his head tilted too far to the side, and something tall behind them, so tall its head nearly touched the ceiling. No face, just darkness where the face should be. I don't remember deciding to keep going. I only remember being angry suddenly. Angry at Ray. Angry at myself. Angry that I was standing in the yard of a dead house being watched by things that should not exist. I grabbed my phone and took a picture of the windows. Or tried to. The screen went black the moment I aimed at the house. Battery dead. It had been at 72%. That was when I heard the trunk behind me. The first black trunk on the porch. The latch clicked. I turned slowly. The lid had opened maybe an inch. Something inside breathed. One long, wet inhale. I walked toward it even though every part of me screamed not to. The trunk shifted. Then from inside, a woman whispered, "Daniel?" Not "help me," not "leave." This is my name. I slammed the lid shut and dragged both trunks off the porch, down the steps, and towards my truck. I threw them into the bed one at a time. Then I went back for the third, because fear makes people run, but panic makes people stupid. The basement door was open again. The third trunk sat at the bottom of the stairs. Only now it wasn't against the wall. It was waiting at the foot of the steps. I shined my flashlight down. The beam flickered. Behind the trunk, in the darkness, stood the little girl. She was maybe 7 or 8. Long hair, white nightgown, bare feet, black with dirt. Her face was mostly hidden, but I could see her mouth. She said, "He won't let us leave." I couldn't speak. She pointed behind me. I turned. A woman stood in the kitchen. Up close, she looked almost normal at first. Dark hair pinned back, pale dress, thin face, but her eyes were wrong. Too deep, too dark, like someone had pushed them far back into her skull. She looked at me and said, "You brought the road with you." I had no idea what that meant. Then she stepped aside and looked toward the living room. The front door was gone. Not closed, gone. Where it had been was just old wallpaper and cracked trim. No door, no sunlight, no outside. The house had sealed itself. I backed towards the basement stairs. The woman said, "You shouldn't have answered him." I said, "Ray?" She nodded slowly. "He sends them when it starts again." I asked, "When what starts?" The walls creaked, not like a house settling, like something inside them was stretching. The little girl at the bottom of the stairs began to cry. The woman looked up at the ceiling, and then I heard it, the sound inside the walls, long scratches, dragging, movement, all around me. The woman whispered, "Hunger." The wallpaper beside me bulged outward. Something pressed against it from inside the wall. Long fingers, too many knuckles. I stumbled backward and almost fell down the basement stairs. The little girl screamed, "Not down here!" But it was too late. The kitchen lights flashed on, all of them, bright yellow. Then every cabinet door slammed open at once. The woman opened her mouth wide, wider than any human mouth should open, and screamed without making a sound. The walls split. Something began crawling out. I didn't see all of it. Thank God, I saw enough. Gray limbs, a back bent the wrong direction, a head wrapped in old wallpaper-like skin, no eyes, no mouth, just a dark vertical slit where the face should have been. It unfolded itself from the wall like it had been squeezed flat inside for years. I fell down the basement stairs, hit my shoulder, lost the flashlight. For a few seconds, I was in total darkness. Above me, the thing moved across the kitchen ceiling, not walking, dragging itself. The sound was horrible. Wet wood tearing, nails scraping plaster. The little girl grabbed my wrist. Her hand was ice cold. She whispered, "Open the third trunk." I said, "Ray told me not to." She said, "Ray feeds it." That sentence woke something up in me. I crawled to the trunk, found the latch, and opened it. Inside were bones, small bones, wrapped in what looked like old quilts. There were toys, too, a wooden horse, a cracked porcelain doll, a tiny red mitten. At the very bottom was a metal box. The little girl pointed to it. "Burn the names." My hands were shaking so badly I could barely open it. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, families, children, workers, men like me standing in front of the house. On the back of each photo was a name and a date. The most recent photo was of me, standing in the driveway earlier that day, taken from upstairs window. I nearly dropped it. Behind my photo was another one. Ray, younger, maybe 20 years younger, standing beside the same porch, smiling. And behind him, in the upstairs window, was the woman. Written on the back was, "Raymond Hollis, spared, 1999. Spared, not escaped. Spared." The little girl whispered, "He made a promise." Above us, the basement door exploded inward. The thing from the wall came down the stairs head first. Its limbs bent and cracked as it moved. The woman appeared behind it, but she didn't look like herself anymore. Her face flickered between human and something hollow, like she was part of the house, like all of them were. I grabbed the metal box and ran deeper into the basement. There was an old cold furnace in the corner. Beside it, a can of kerosene. I don't know why it was still there. Maybe the house wanted it there. Maybe something else did. I dumped the photos into the furnace, poured kerosene over them. My lighter wouldn't spark. Once, twice, 3 times. The creature reached the basement floor. The little girl stood between us. It lowered its faceless head towards her, and from behind me the woman screamed, "Now!" The lighter caught. I threw it in. The furnace erupted. The sound that came from the house was not a scream. It was every scream. Men, women, children, all at once. The basement walls shook. The shelves collapsed. Jars shattered. The creature twisted backward, clawing at its own body, and smoke poured from the slit in its face. The woman dropped to her knees. The little girl covered her ears. I ran. I don't remember how I got past the thing. I don't remember climbing the stairs. I only remember seeing the front door again, open, and sunlight outside. I threw myself through it and landed hard on the porch. Behind me, the house groaned like a dying animal. The upstairs window shattered outward. Black smoke poured through the roof. I scrambled to my truck, started it, and slammed it into reverse. The 2 trunks were still in the bed. As I backed down the driveway, the porch light flickered again. Once, then it went out. For good. I drove straight to Ray's office. The trunk stuttered around the trunk bed the whole way. When I got there, Ray was already standing outside, like he had been waiting. He looked past me at the trunks, then back at my face. "You opened one," he said. I got out of the truck and punched him so hard he fell against the building. I never hit a man like that before. I asked him what that house was. He wiped blood from his lip and said, "A bad place." I asked why he sent me. He said, "Because it picked you." I didn't understand. He pointed to my truck. There, stuck under the windshield wiper, was a child's drawing from the refrigerator. The Stick family. The tall, dark figure. The words, "He lives in the walls." But now there was another figure drawn beside the family. A man in a blue work shirt, holding a flashlight. Me. Ray said, "It always marks the next one." I asked him what happened to the people in the trunks. He said nothing. I asked how many people he had sent there. He looked away. That was answer enough. The police got involved after I called them. Ray disappeared before they arrived. They searched the office, then the house, or what was left of it. By the time anyone got out to Briar Road, the farmhouse had burned nearly to the foundation. The fire department said it looked like it had started in the basement. They found bones, a lot of them, some old, some not so old. They never found Ray. The official story was that he fled because he was connected to multiple disappearances. Maybe that's true. Maybe he was just a coward who found a way to survive something evil by feeding other people to it. But I don't think Ray ran from the police. I think the house took back what it was owed. because 3 weeks later I received an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was one photograph. Ray standing on the porch of the farmhouse. Only the house wasn't burned. It looked brand new. White paint, clean windows, porch light glowing. Ray was staring at the camera, terrified. Behind him, in the upstairs window, stood the woman, and behind her was the tall thing with no face. On the back of the photo, written in black ink, were 4 words. He broke his promise. I wish I could say that was the end. For a while I thought it was. I quit the cleanup business, moved 2 counties away, changed my phone number, and got a normal job. I try not to think about Briar Road, but sometimes, usually late at night, I smell that old perfume. Sweet, powdery, rotten underneath. Sometimes I wake up because I hear humming in the hallway. 3 or 4 notes, soft, repeating. Every now and then when I drive past an empty house, I look at the porch light. I can't help it. Most of them are off. But last October I was driving home from work before dark and passed the old yellow house that I had never noticed before. Windows were dark, yard overgrown, for sale sign leaning in the weeds. And as my headlights crossed the porch, the light flickered on, just once. I kept driving. I didn't slow down. I didn't look back. But when I got home, there was something stuck under my windshield wiper, a photograph. It showed my truck passing that yellow house, taken from an upstairs window. On the back, written in child's handwriting, were the words, "It found another road."